Welcome to my latest mock draft. Please post your picks in the comments below. Let's start with Carolina. It's either going to be CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. Both could be great, but I have to pick a CJ Stroud. Frank Reich gets his guy. That's why you trade up to number one in the first place. Just a hunch. He's going to fall in love with CJ Stroud. The Texans get an excellent consolation prize and take Bryce Young. Just for the record, I do love Davis Mills, and I would love to see the Houston Texans give him another chance. However, I think the Texans want to build with a new quarterback. Bryce Young will be the pick, and I predict he starts opening day for the Texans. Next, we have our first trade. The Colts and the Cardinals will switch places in the draft. Now with the Colts picking third, they will take Anthony Richardson. New head coach Shane Steichen, the former Philly offensive coordinator, can do a lot of what Philly did with Jalen Hurts and incorporate that into the Colts offense. He even brings over Gardner Minshew to run the offense for 2023. I do not expect Richardson to start this year, but hopefully take over as the starter in 2024. Arizona might trade down again, but if I'm the Cardinals, I take Will Anderson. Anderson would have been the first overall pick in 2022's draft, and considering the Cardinals were 31st in scoring defense and they are bringing in Philly's the old defensive coordinator as their new head coach, the old Philly's old linebackers coach is now the new defensive coordinator. It just makes sense for them to add who I think is the best pass rusher in the draft in Will Anderson. You never know what Pete Carroll is going to do in the draft, but I have a hard time believing he's going to let a talent like Jalen Carter go. Seattle picks again at 20, so taking a risk on the talented Carter makes sense. Seattle needs help on the defensive line, and Carter is the best defensive tackle in this draft. Detroit at 6 is where my mock draft gets tricky. I've mocked several different positions and players. I've also attempted a trade down, but I don't see a trade that makes sense. I think the Lions will end up making the pick at 6, and in this mock, I got the Lions taking Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee. It's not that I have anything against Jared Goff, but in an ideal world, the Lions are not picking again at 6 anytime soon. The Lions also pick again at 18 plus 2 second-round picks, so why not take the talented quarterback here available at 6? It's unlikely, but also possible that Hendon Hooker could be drafted and then used as trade capital. You might remember, for example, Eli Manning was actually drafted by the Chargers. Then after that, he was traded to the Giants. Don't be surprised if a move like this happens draft day with Hendon Hooker. The Raiders at 7 could be a candidate to trade down. They need help on all 3 levels on defense. But defense starts up front, and while the Raiders' Max Crosby's 12.5 sacks are appreciated, the Raiders' defense as a whole only had 27 total last year. I got the Raiders taking Tyree Wilson here. Chandler Jones is 33 and could be traded. Ideally, Chandler Jones helps mentor the talented Wilson. In a perfect situation, Wilson doesn't start, but helps and takes over across Crosby full-time in 2024. The Raiders will need Wilson to contribute in 2023, but he might not have to play full-time immediately. Out of all the head coaching positions in the NFL, Arthur Smith's coaching seat might be the hottest. His first 2 years, he's had double-digit losses in both seasons. With a depleted NFC South, anything less than a playoff berth should get Arthur Smith fired. With the Falcons in win-now mode, the player who can help you the most is Bijan Robinson. Arthur Smith's biggest success in the NFL is when he was calling plays in Tennessee and Derrick Henry was playing his best football. I'm fully aware the Falcons only had 21 sacks last year and still need some help on defense, but this is a deep edge rush class. No player will help you as much day one as Robinson. Fantasy football guys, draft Robinson early. he is going to be special. The Chicago Bears, after trading down to number 9 in the draft, in my opinion, take the best offensive lineman available. To me, that's Peter Skornonski. Now, whoever the Bears have as their highest rated offensive lineman will be the pick. In my opinion, take Skornonski and you just plug and play at left tackle day one. We have another trade. Thanks to the extra draft capital in the Aaron Rodgers trade, which I believe will happen, the Packers have the ability to move up to 10 and draft Dalton Kincaid. He will be called a tight end in name only, but it is unlikely that the Utah weapon will line up in a 3-point stance on the line of scrimmage often. I wouldn't be surprised if Kincaid leads the Packers in several receiving categories as a rookie. Fantasy players draft Kincaid early. He is going to be a really good player. Tennessee at 11 could go in a lot of different directions, but I love the idea of Vrabel drafting Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa and playing him up and down the defensive line. I think most of the time he'll play outside linebacker opposite Harold Landry, but you can get creative with Van Ness and use him in different ways. I'm curious not only how, but when Van Ness will hit the lineup. Do you start him right away or do you ease him into the fire? I'm not sure how exactly Vrabel will use the talented Van Ness or when he will play, but the upside is exciting for Titans fans. Houston is back picking 12. After getting their quarterback at pick number 2, they go defense here. I love Myles Murphy here as the pick for the Texans. The main reason the defense didn't work last year was Lovie Smith hoping a defensive line rotation of experienced veterans would work. They had a lot of past their prime players, but no studs. Murphy is a stud, and he's perfectly built for DeMeco Ryans' defense. I bet he starts day one and becomes a monster for the Texans. The Jets are now armed with Aaron Rodgers, but I still have them picking 13th. Now, this pick could be used in trade capital to acquire Rodgers, but is still owned by the Jets as I am making this video. This pick will be to protect Rodgers with the best offensive lineman available, and I have that as Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State. Now, this could be Broderick Jones out of Georgia, but I have Johnson rated just a hair higher. In my opinion, what you do is you draft Johnson and plug and play him day one as the starting left tackle for the Jets. The Patriots trade this pick to the Chargers along with picks 135 and 184. New England has 3 picks in round 4 and 4 picks in round 6, but none in round 5. The Chargers will give up pick 21 and their 5th round pick number 156. Plus, the Patriots acquire Austin Ekeler. You might remember Ekeler requested a trade in draft day. He becomes a Patriot. To recap the trade, New England will get Austin Ekeler plus the Chargers' 1st and 5th round picks. The Chargers will get pick number 14 plus picks 135 and 184. With the 14th pick in the draft, the Chargers will use it to draft Christian Gonzalez. Last year, the Chargers signed J.C. Jackson in free agency, and it was a disaster even before he got injured. Gonzalez instantly improves the secondary, and with the Ekeler trade, nets extra draft capital. After trading down to 15, Philly will use this pick to take Nolan Smith. I like Smith to Philly for a couple of reasons. First off, Philly loves loading up on pass rushers, and there's not many faster and more athletic than Nolan Smith. Second, Hassan Reddick is on the 2nd year of a 3-year deal. Jalen Hurts' contract is going to come up, and the expensive Reddick might need to be a cap casualty. You also have longtime Eagle Brandon Graham, who came back on a 1-year deal. With Nolan Smith, you get a cheaper player for 2024 and leverage on Reddick, while not sacrificing players on your pass rush. Washington at 16, I debated between taking a corner or help on the offensive line. I went offensive line with Broderick Jones. Every team in the NFC East has used massive draft capital on the offensive line except for Washington, which was the only NFC team last year not to make the playoffs. With Jones, I predict he starts day one on the inside, but will eventually win one of the starting tackle spots. With a young new quarterback in Sam Howell, Washington helps the success by taking a talented Jones here at 16. I am not a sentimental guy and usually do not take sentimental picks in the draft. But Pittsburgh here at 17 is an exception as the Steelers take Joey Porter Jr. Yes, Joey Porter Sr. was one of my all-time favorite players, and his son going to his old team is a lot of fun for me. But it fills a need. I could see Patrick Peterson moving to safety eventually, and until then, Porter gets eased into the starting lineup. Porter will not be forced to play full-time right away. He gets a mentor and future Hall of Famer Patrick Peterson till he is ready to start. Lions fans hated when I mocked Devin Witherspoon to Detroit at 6. But I firmly believe he is a Dan Campbell type of player, and in this mock the Lions will strike gold and Witherspoon will fall to them at 18. Tampa Bay at 19 gets Will Levis. I have mocked Tampa trading up, and while it definitely is still a possibility, I think it's more likely Tampa will stay put at 19 and save their draft capital to fill their holes. However, if Levis is available at 19, I cannot see the Bucs passing up getting their future quarterback. You have Baker Mayfield, but he's there on only a one-year deal and could be the perfect mentor for the talented Levis, who I predict will take over as full-time starter in 2024. Seattle is back, picking 20th, and I have them taking Osiris Torrance, the massive guard out of Florida. Last year, Seattle struck gold in the draft, taking 2 starting tackles. Why not double down with the massive Torrance, who should also be a day one starter in Seattle? This is one of my favorite players in the draft, and I think he becomes a dominant player in the NFL. After trading down to 21 and acquiring Austin Eckler, New England takes Cody Mock out of North Dakota State University. Mock played multiple positions at the Senior Bowl, but he is athletic and tough enough to earn a starting spot day one at right tackle for New England. Just a hunch, this is a player New England is targeting in the draft. And while 21 might be a little high for Mock, I do believe you're getting a day one starter who will help this offense out immediately. Stop me if you've heard this before. The Baltimore Ravens are taking a player from Alabama. Brian Branch will be the pick for Baltimore at 22. Branch can line up all over the field, and I think the Ravens will get creative and don't play him in just one spot. Branch can play corner, safety, inside, or outside. His versatility and toughness will make him a fan favorite very quickly. We have another trade as the Minnesota Vikings and the Kansas City Chiefs switch first round picks. The Super Bowl winning Chiefs will trade up to 23 and take Jackson Smith-Njigba. Kansas City lost Juju Smith-Schuster in free agency, so a trade up for his replacement makes sense. I still don't believe how dominant JSN was against Utah in the 2021 Rose Bowl. Minnesota only has 5 draft picks, and Kansas City still has extra draft capital from the Tyreek Hill trade. Njigba doesn't need to start, but he will contribute for the Super Bowl winning Chiefs in 2023. I keep mocking Kelly Ringo to Jacksonville at 24. The Jags need a corner who's not afraid to tackle in the physical AFC South. Ringo is more than just physical, he is a big-time playmaker. At the Combine, he showed off his 4.36 speed, and that is after weighing in at 6'2", 207. I predict Ringo starts day 1 and has an immediate impact for the Jaguars. The Giants at 25 take one of my biggest draft crushes in Keion White. This could be a dream come true for Giants fans and a nightmare for the rest of the NFC. White is athletic enough to rush the passer and big and strong enough to play the standard 5 technique in a base 3-4 defense. The creative defensive coordinator Wink Martindale will have fun with this athletic superstar. I predict White will play all over the defense and will be a superstar in the NFL very soon. We have another trade. A Texas two-step as the Cowboys and Texans flip picks. Even though this is a first-round mock draft, you get a bonus pick with the Dallas Cowboys at 33. I predict they'll take Steve Avila, the guard out of TCU, who will become a day 1 starter on the Dallas offensive line. The Texans at 26 will also pick from TCU. They take my number 1 wide receiver in the draft, Quentin Johnston. Johnston is raw but has massive upside. In this mock, Houston takes Bryce Young at number 2, and if this happens, the Texans will need to give the young Alabama quarterback some weapons. After trading away Brandon Cooks to Dallas, it only seems fair to do another trade for another wide receiver. This is one of those rare trades that works out really well for both Texas football teams. Buffalo at 27 takes former Pittsburgh and USC wide receiver Jordan Addison. I like Addison to Buffalo for a few reasons. First, Buffalo needs more firepower on offense after only scoring 10 points in a playoff loss to the Bengals last year. I firmly believe that Buffalo also will need help when Gabriel Davis hits free agency next year. With Diggs, Miller, and Allen taking up an average of over $90 million a year, you're going to have some cap casualties, and Davis is probably going to be one of them. By drafting Addison, you are ahead of this issue, and you also add some firepower to this year's Bills offense. The Bengals are next, picking 28, and I have them taking one of my favorite players in the draft, Antonio Johnson. The big safety out of Texas A&M, I believe, will be the starting strong safety day 1 for the Bengals. While he is known as a hitter, the former 5-star player is an exceptional athlete, and he provides the Bengals with some exciting options on defense. Not only will Johnson be the day 1 starter, I believe he will quickly become a fan favorite. This will be an impact player for the Bengals. The Saints at 29, I have them taking Kalijah Kancey, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. He isn't the type of defensive lineman Dennis Allen usually drafts, but Kancey's athleticism and speed give him an opportunity to be a star in New Orleans. I'm not sure he starts, but he will be on the field in obvious passing situations. Kancey's pass rushing talents is something that is extremely unique, and he could be a steal here at 29. We have another trade. The who were picking 39th. The Raiders will come back into round 1 for Maryland corner Deonte Banks. Banks is big, strong, and fast, but the reason the Raiders trade back into round 1 is for his versatility. At Maryland, he was asked to play in a lot of different coverages and was asked to do a lot of different things. Patrick Graham, the Raiders defensive coordinator, will want to get more creative on defense in 2023. Getting the raw rookie who is asked to do different things on defense while at Maryland will speed up his learning curve. Banks may not start right away, but he will contribute immediately. If you haven't already, hit the like button. And if you are new, hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, ring the bell to hear the like every time I come out with a video. I go live every Friday night at 7 p.m. and we'll be live April 27th, draft night, as I present and break down all 31 games live. Now for the final pick in the first round, we have another trade. Minnesota, who moved down from 23 earlier in the draft, will move down again to 36 And the Rams will move into round 1 and select Will McDonald out of Iowa State. In a cap-cutting move, the Rams released former starter Leonard Floyd, and in this mock draft, LA will replace Floyd with a very similar type of athlete. McDonald is crazy athletic and long and is an excellent pass rusher. Like Floyd coming out of college, he will probably need to put on some weight, but I still believe McDonald will be a day 1 starter at outside linebacker for the Rams. If you want to see what happens in the later rounds, check out these mock drafts that go into rounds 2 and 3.